What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Financial Freedom Fridays. Got an interesting one for you today. We're going to be talking about multifamily and commercial and what the heck all of that stuff means. But with me, as always, is my co-host Mike Oakes. Mike, how you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing today? Can't wait to talk more about multifamily and commercial. We have some experience in it, so it's going to be fun to bring this back to light again.
Yeah, so we want to dive right into it. We want to, as our friend Mando says, we want to cut through all the noise. And for this one, we want to talk about why would you pick a multifamily over investing in something like a single family or land or anything like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is the significant income streams and how that is kind of able to progress as you move forward. So the first point for us is like it's a really risky investment to have one property and have all your money sunk into one property. Especially if there's only one tenant, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room or margin for error, right? So if something goes wrong on the property, they have to move out, then you're kind of stuck on making that payment and you don't have any money coming in. So it's just like it's a nightmare. But if you have a bigger investment with multiple people in it, there's a better chance that the vacancy is never really going to affect you, right? So, like, for example, if you have two properties, right, and one person moves out, you're at a 50% vacancy, which means you're making half of the money you should be making. Whereas if you had, say, a 16 unit, you'd have to have 8 people move out for you to be at that 50%. So there's a larger margin for error, and it's easier to scale that way too because you kind of have that stability. Um, Mike, do you want to talk about the difference between multifamily and commercial investments?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, multifamily, excuse me, obviously involves multiple residential units under one roof, providing consistent cash flow, just like Paul said, lower vacancy rate and risk on it, uh, higher income streams, and you can scale these a lot easier than you can with a single family portfolio. And then commercial properties, those are like your retail, office spaces, industrial, hotels, all that type of stuff, which usually have longer leases and higher return on investment potential. They're usually a little riskier and harder to get into, but those are really kind of the differences in how instead of, focusing on one target, you can focus on a bigger goal that houses a lot of people and make a lot more money quicker than you could just the normal single family route, which we find to be very interesting. Who wouldn't find that to be interesting in our world? But there's also some key metrics that we use that we've talked about before that involve NOIs, cap rate, cash on cash, all that type of stuff that really just help you determine if what you're going to buy is a good deal or if it's not a good deal. So, Paul, let the people know a little bit about those metrics and how important and why they're so important.
Yeah, so first of all, you want to always go off of the numbers that are current on the property, right? And I feel like a lot of times whenever you're looking at these bigger deals, when you get the OM or the operating memorandum, a lot of times they have pro forma numbers, which are just kind of like a projection, right? So, like, if there's something that needs fixed on the property, they call it a capex improvement. They'll say, hey, with X amount in capex improvement, you should be able to get 10,000 extra in rents, right? But that's just an estimate. That's just a guess, right? It's a educated guess, but it's still a guess at the end of the day, and you have to go on the numbers that are current, right? So when it comes to the net operating income, you don't want to use their pro forma estimate. You want to use what it currently stands at. And the same thing with the cap rate, right? You have to look at the area. You have to use resources like cap rate index, and you have to actually put in the zip code or the county and see, okay, there's an average of, let's say, a 7% or 7 cap, right, in the area. So I know if I'm too much in either direction, either too low or too high, it's definitely something to pay attention to. And you want to think about, like, if there's a lower cap rate, it's typically a safer investment, right? Because it's in a good area. Like, the very touristy areas of like Hawaii is like a 5 cap, right? Like you're gonna make money as long as you have a good product. Whereas if you have those riskier investments at like a 12 cap, then you start finding yourself in like, inner city Detroit, or like, those places that need revitalized. They need more money because it's a riskier investment. But on the other side of the coin, it's a more profitable investment, right? Because if you're able to pull it off, then there's a greater chance for a bigger return. So you kind of have to pick your battles
Yeah.
on what you want to, like, what your risk tolerance is, right? If you want a safe investment, go for a lower. If you want a potential smoking deal, as we call it, you're going to have to go to those 10, 12 cap areas for it to make sense. And then the cash on cash return is just, if I'm putting X amount in, I expect to get Y amount out, right? So it's like, if I want a good return on my investment, I have to make sure that there's other investments that have a good cash on cash return in the area, right? So this is really important. Make sure that you're pulling accurate comps so that you're seeing, okay, here's the potential. It's just an estimate, but it's an educated estimate on what this property could do for us and how it could perform.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really important for these commercial properties to really analyze the numbers, like the market demand, vacancy rates, just kind of everything in the area to make sure that you can have a stabilized income whenever you do take the property down. And the cool part is you can buy something at that lower price, and you can come in and put value add into it. So say they were charging 200 less than what the market rents are. Depending on how many units you have in that property, that could be millions of dollars added to your bottom line and to your NOI that wasn't there before, that you just created out of thin air just by understanding the market demand, where everybody's looking to buy, and how you can really create that pro forma number, that perfect world, right on your own, just by making sure you looked at the right places, found the right information to make sure that, okay, people will pay this price, and I'm not just making up this number and coming out of nowhere. So it's really cool how you can truly understand what a property's worth and if it can actually make money just by looking at what's around it in just kind of the general area. So, yeah, if you're ever interested in learning more about it, just come to us. We got some great info, great partners that we can help. But before we do that, you got to make sure that you click that like button, subscribe, write a comment, let us know what you want to see. But, Paul, the next thing I want to talk about, dude, is really like selecting the right property for us or for the people watching this at home, like, what criteria are we looking for in choosing multifamily or commercial properties that like aligns, I guess, with our goals and what we're looking for?
Great question. I would say that you guys have to do what makes sense for you. And that's not going to be, you're not going to find that out unless you're actively networking and you're talking to people that are doing already what you want to do in the future, or in the very near future. So a great example of that, we have an amazing community member named Justin Tumanowski, and his specialty is microfamily, right? So he's looking for like 4 to 8 units, right? Multifamily. He likes to go in there. And the reason he picks that number is because it's comfortable for him. He's done it a bunch. He has a process that's systematized at this point. He knows, hey, as long as I get it in this zip code or in these zip codes for this price, I know based on my track record that I'm going to make money, right? It's going to be a sound investment. I'm not going to lose my company over a few units. So here I would say you have to go to the people that are already doing what you want to do. You have to make sure that they're legitimate, that they're actually doing what they say they're doing. And from there, you can kind of resonate with them, right? So I know a lot of people, they resonate with like the Grant Cardone method of this, right? Where Grant Cardone is like, I need as much as I can at all times so that I can get a smaller piece of that, right? So he goes after the massive $1 billion projects, 1,000 unit plus, that kind of thing, right? But it's a very, very risky investment, right? Whereas somebody like Justin Tumanowski will invest in smaller, micro family as opposed to that larger multifamily. And I think it works for both, right? So, like, if you want to be a Grant Cardone, go do what Grant Cardone does. If you want to be a Justin Tumanowski, go do what Justin Tumanowski does. And I think it all goes back to your risk tolerance, right? Like, are you a person that is constantly pushing the envelope and trying to get the next best thing, the biggest thing? Then you have to go for those types of investments, right? Or are you a person that is like, hey, I've worked very hard for this money that I'm investing into this real estate. I need to make sure that I'm not losing this. I'm not losing my shirt. And you invest in the smaller one, right? It's all about risk tolerance, and you have to get comfortable with getting uncomfortable so that you can find out what you like. Because initially you might think that you want the big project, and then you go through it and you're like, oh my God, that was a headache. I hated that. We lost so much money. There was too many moving parts. I didn't have the experience for it. Why don't I try something smaller? Or on the inverse, you might try the micro family and say, hey guys, this is great and everything, but I need 500 units. So you just really have to find what works for you. And also you have to think about your client, right? Like, if you're going to be renting these out, you have to know what kind of area it's in. You have to know what kind of client is going to be using your property. And then you have to make decisions based on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of go off what Paul was just saying there, if you're looking for like consistent cash flow, you're really going to be geared more towards multifamily and those smaller units. And if you're looking for the high value leases, tenant stability, that kind of deal, you're looking more towards the commercial end. So you really just have to know what your risk tolerance is and what you're trying to do with the money that you're going to put into the deal. So once again, I know we harp on this a lot, but you really have to make sure you do your analysis on the market and be very, very detailed. Job growth, population growth, people moving away, that type of stuff. You got to check tenant histories. Let's see, what else do you have to do? Lease agreements in there, just so that way, if there are a bunch of people in the commercial side or the multifamily side that are going to be moving away, you can then do capex and value add to them, so you can update the units, make them more, optimize for the rent that can be given to those new properties or like those new units. And then just make sure that the condition and all the care of the property itself is being taken care of, so that way you're just not walking into some dumpster fire. You're walking into a somewhat stabilized to a fully stabilized asset once you get all those steps and have a chance to be able to make sure that everything's good in the property.
Yeah, exactly. It all goes back to doing your homework, right? Talking to people that are doing what you want to do, and then executing. You could sit here, you could watch all these videos, and you could learn as much as possible. But I promise you, if this is something you're interested in, you're going to learn so much more by just doing it, by picking up the phone, by walking over to these properties, driving over to them, talking to the sellers, talking to agents, talking to brokers. That's where you learn. And if you want to learn with us, follow us on Instagram. I'm at Paul's Investing. Mike is Mike's REI Roots on Instagram. Give us a DM. We also have our Veterans Choice _ on Instagram. That's our company page. DM us with questions. And if you guys want to see something else, let us know. But like, comment, subscribe, and we really appreciate you being here.
Yep. And join us for part 2 of multifamily next week, where we'll go into a little bit more of the tenant management process, financing for larger deals, and kind of scaling that portfolio to make sure that you are able to keep the cash flow going. So, like Paul said, comment, like, subscribe, reach out to us. We're here to help. And if you need anything, as always, we're here for you.